think about the scope of the conference again, what did you see or hear that surprised you?
I think there were a couple of things. Memory's still decompressing, but
Yep.
I would say that one of the things that surprised me the most was the difference between some of the federal government departments and agencies in their adoption and in their boldness and bring what their definition of collaboration means, for example. The Department of Homeland Security, they gave a presentation that I ended up walking out of because it was just too. I couldn't believe how slow things were. Their idea of collaboration across all the different agencies that now makes up the Department of Homeland Security is to have a corporate university. That's their collaboration plan. When we're talking about collaboration now, when other people are talking about collaboration, we're talking about how do you develop communities of practice in a way that supports them, that builds up, these knowledge stores that can be then leveraged in lots of different ways. That's my definition, and that seems to be where other people are headed. The DAU certainly is headed in that direction. So when I'm faced with that, I was like, well, I don't want to spend an hour here. I'd much rather pursue a conversation that might be more fruitful for me. And I also didn't want to go start bashing them, on Twitter because that's easy to do. So I just removed myself from the situation, as did others. The virtual worlds presentations and the case for virtual worlds was definitely a surprise.
What in particular about the virtual world surprised you? You talked about, hey, it's ready for prime time now. How did you know it was ready for prime time? Was it something that you saw or heard that said, my gosh, yes, that's ready for prime time?
Well, it's a combination of things, Dennis. I would say that for one thing, there was some pretty good anecdotal cases made to me that seemed to present virtual worlds as not a flight of fancy, but a way. Sometimes I have to think about things in terms of tools before I can think about how they fit in theory. So if you think about WebEx right now, WebEx is the one vehicle that most companies, my company certainly has it, to present information virtually, to our larger group. You replace that with a virtual world where people are meeting all the time. The world is going on without you. It isn't a session that you're inviting everybody to. It is, it's something that's going on. It's ongoing, whether you're in the world or not. So you want to make time to be in that world and then maneuver around to meet with different groups and bring in the PowerPoint and bring in the document exchange and things like that. That was. It's not like I didn't hear that before. I just didn't hear it presented in the way it was presented to me by people like Corrine Ulbrich and Mark Ollert. And then, when people that I have come to know through their agency on Twitter, when they are telling me this is a really good thing, I tend to want to believe them because I trust their judgment. So I would not. I would have to admit that my relationships are coloring some of my judgment, but I would also argue that relationships always color judgment. And
these aren't relationships with people selling hot dogs to you on the street. These are experts in e-learning and in environments of educating, of sharing, collaboration.
Absolutely. These are not like straight up vendors who have snake oil to sell. These are legitimate people who are living and breathing this stuff all the time, and
suffering the pains of bad implementation.
And they are duking it out just like I am. So when they're telling me you should really take a look at this, I tend to want to believe them.